Hello there everyone, it's Aidan here from Push Square, and this week I have been checking out Firewall Ultra, the long-awaited VR shooter that is supposedly bringing a next-gen tactical experience to the PSVR2. So let's squad up and roll straight into this review to see if it's been worth the wait. Honestly, it felt a little strange booting up Firewall Ultra for the first time. It's a game that simultaneously straddles the line of reboot, remake and sequel, all while selling the best features that the PSVR2 has to offer. As a result, it has steadily become synonymous with Sony's headset, even though we knew very little about it prior to its launch. Yet here we are, with Firewall Ultra's 18GB of data nestled into our PS5 hard drives, with an experience that isn't quite the evolution of the VR shooter that we were promised. Now, for those that don't know, Firewall Ultra is the sort of continuation of the 2018 PSVR classic Firewall 0 Hour. Developed by First Contact Entertainment, it's an online tactical shooter that pits squads of 4 against either AI opponents in PvE or real player squads in PvP. There's one mode for each game type, along with some safe house training zones, so don't expect Firewall Ultra to be an enormous multiplayer offering, at least not on launch. Similar to its predecessor, Ultra is going to come into its own over time, with First Contact already laying out its first year of planned post-launch content covering everything from new modes to characters. We've become accustomed to games forging great experiences over time, but how does this one fare on launch? Well, that in itself is a muddled tale. For one, Firewall Ultra looks and runs brilliantly on the PSVR2. The game has a keen eye for lighting in each of its 8 maps that give it a certain moodiness. I absolutely adored sneaking through darkened hallways with only the torch of my pistol lighting the way. There's a nice variety to each of the maps too, all of which are reworked from the first game, and I really appreciated the flow from open well-lit spaces to darker funnels. The fidelity on show, helped here by foveated rendering, is second to none, and getting up close and personal with my weaponry is a common occurrence. Sadly though, the high qualities of its visuals don't quite transfer to the gameplay experience. While the performance is perfectly fine, it's the control scheme and motion tracking that supremely let me down. There is a severe lack of physical interactivity throughout the game that can result in a frustrating gameplay experience. A long press of L1 is all that's needed to interact with computers, doors, ammunitions and fallen teammates. A tap of X activates the auto reload, R3 acts as the crouch button, and even stabbing and aiming down sights have button prompts. For every physical movement or interaction that might seem natural in VR, there is a button press there that ruins the immersion. All of these small gameplay mechanics gave me the impression that this is a VR game made for people that don't actually play VR. As additional accessibility options, yeah, they are entirely wholeheartedly welcomed, but as the main mode of play, it makes the game feel like a VR experience on stabilizers. The community clearly feels it too, as after many complaints, First Contact folded and announced Ultra Mode, which will feature things like manual reloading. But at this time we don't quite know when it will arrive. Across most of my time with the game, I was constantly harking back to the natural feeling controls of a VR game like Pavlov VR. By comparison, Firewall Ultra feels like an on-rails shooter. Gunfights never quite have the same frenetic energy, and the controls never really became second nature in the way that I hoped they would. The eye tracking in particular is cool, yeah, and at times it feels intuitive, but ultimately is a little gimmicky. You have to look where you want to throw a grenade when an underarm toss would have done just fine. There's also a severe dealing of jank that litters the Firewall experience, like hands refusing to let go of your weapon, or weird hand switching controls and really stuttery movement when next to another player. To a degree, it just comes with the territory of a VR shooter, but really, I expected better from a release like this. And not helping any of this out is the tedious matchmaking process. Now, undeniably, this is something that could be patched out or improved by the time that this review is live. However, across my time with the game, I just couldn't get into any kind of match with a friend unless we made a private lobby, and PvP matchmaking took an absolute age, even when I was just on my own. There's also a 2-minute timer between matches, regardless of whether your full squad is ready or not, that I just found infuriating. It meant that it felt like I was spending more time waiting to get into the games than actually being in the games. Now of course, these have all been technical critiques, but what is it actually like to play the game? Well, partnered up with the visual presentation and the mostly solid performance, I still had fun with Firewall Ultra. It's a game made immeasurably better when playing with friends, and PvP, yeah, it can be quite tense. Yet despite it being the main focus of the release, that being PvP, I was actually more drawn to the PvE offering. Systemically making my way through dumb as rocks AI with a full squad was the highlight of my time with Firewall Ultra, especially as a mode that feels fuller and definitely thrusts you into more action than its PvP counterpart. The problem is, neither mode really has the spark, you know, the thing that I needed to make me come back time and time again. Both of them are far too short for one. You'll only just be getting into the swing of things by the time it's all over. And secondly, there is no depth beyond go and hack that computer, which quickly becomes dull. The progression system on paper should fill that void where you're unlocking new weapons and attachments to perfect your loadout. However, XP and currency handout is so excruciatingly slow that after nearly 10 hours, I hadn't even reached level 2 and have only managed to scrounge up a measly 6,000 credits. Now for a bit of context, a rifle will set you back as much as 100,000 credits and a suppressor attachment unlocks at level 39. In the nicest possible way, I am not grinding for dozens of hours for a silencer. Ultimately though, I think my impressions of Firewall Ultra boil down to just one question. Will I be back for more? And at this point, honestly, it seems unlikely. There are certainly the bones of a good game in here, maybe even a great game actually, but with the streamlined gameplay experience and limited content roster, frankly, I just kept thinking about the better VR games I could have been playing instead. I'll certainly be keen to dip in once new content arrives, but it is especially disheartening when we've all been waiting for a big VR shooter like this on the PSVR2 for quite some time. Firewall Ultra then is an infrequently fun yet persistently disappointing first-party title that really just forgets what makes VR so special in the first place. Thank you everyone for checking out my review of Firewall Ultra. If you have also been playing the game since it launched, let me know what you've been thinking about it down in the comments. And when you're down there, remember to leave a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content just like this. Anyway, thank you as always for watching, and until next time, I've been Aiden, and this has been Push Square.